Lewis, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the witnesses this afternoon. Learning some pretty neat things here too. I guess specifically with regard to the EU and how that model looks compared to our model here in Canada. And I guess I would start by saying perhaps what we should be looking at is not only the Air Passenger Protection Act, but the Air and Rail Passenger Protection Act, because in some dialogue this morning with the previous witnesses, I'd asked the question. So, is our rail system? Do they have the same constraints, if you will, about how much time somebody can be on a train compared to how much time somebody can be on a plane sitting on a tarmac? And the answer, what I really heard, was no. So this is very, very important testimony. First thing I would like to just share. This is from 24th of February this year. CBC article. Flair Airlines cancels service from Windsor to Montreal without notifying customers. Last flight from Windsor to Montreal via Flair is on September the 6th. So it goes on to speak that they're going to cancel it. Then further on in the article it says, on January the 5th, Mr. Gendreau booked a flight to Montreal from Windsor to visit his girlfriend in Ottawa on February the 17th. He was able to put in his reservation code and see his flight was confirmed through Flair's app. But when Gendreau went on the airport's website to book another trip in March, he saw there were no flights available. So he was able to book it, he's paid for it, and now they're saying that it's not, he won't be flying because they've canceled that flight. Further on the article, it talks about all the costs incurred by this gentleman to go see his loved one. Trains that he's booked to get from Montreal to Ottawa. He's talking about canceling hotel rooms and whatnot. And then to add salt to the wound, the last sentence says, Gendreau said he had to book a new flight that costs an extra $150. And that's not with Flair. That'll be with another airline. So my first question is, to Mr. Jack, do you believe that it should not only be about the passengers that have showed up at an airport and didn't get to fly, but those that have booked in advance and now are saying, no, you're not flying. If you want, it's going to be more money. Is this part of this conversation?
Absolutely, it is, because in fact there are some rules around that. The rules may not be good enough, but there are rules about how much notice you have to be given for a cancellation and what a carrier has to do for you if they cancel within a certain amount of time. So certainly it's within the committee's purview to look at whether you think those time limits are good or not, whether the compensation is good or not. And as well, we would point you to the fact that when the APPR was written, there was a bit of a carve-out for what were then considered smaller carriers, which is everybody smaller than Sunwing and Transat and the big two, as well as in some ways for the what they're calling the ultra low cost carriers, and that would be Flair and Swoop right now.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Lawford, so you had mentioned, and thank you, by the way, for bringing up options for us, right? And you had mentioned that you would like to see the minister have the power to change this, but then also that he can go back to his cabinet. Would it not make more sense to use all 338 members of parliament, as each one of our regions are unique? We know what our passengers are facing in all of our ridings. I would just love some comment on that, please.
Sure. Sorry if I was unclear, and I will be happy to provide our recommendations in written form to the committee so you can read them. What I was referring to is there's already a power, two different powers. There's one for the minister to direct the CTA to make new regulations under 8611 sub 2, and then there's a direct cabinet power to tell the CTA what to do in section 40 and in effect make regulations. So I was referring to those, but I did invite Parliament to actually change the Canada Transportation Act to put the full burden of proof on the airlines, which is something all of you members can do together, and I would love to see that in a bill. And I agree that Parliament's usually the best place to say the real will of Canadians. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawford. What am I at, sir?
45 seconds.
45. I'll be quick through you to Mr. Heyman. So, sir, would you agree with me that, just going back to my original remarks there, that I believe that there's a disconnect between rail and the airlines? Would you agree that the ministry should be indeed making life easier for the rail lines and setting out those guidelines for them so that when there's a 13-hour delay, they don't have to make a decision. It's already black and white for their people. Does that make sense to you, sir? Thank you.
Yes, I would certainly agree with that. I think there's definitely some merit to that. And I would also encourage on that front, there's been talk here about looking to the EU for passenger protection standards around air passengers. There's also some good existing standards there for rail passengers as well. So I think we wouldn't be reinventing the wheel here. Obviously, it's a slightly different situation in the Canadian context than in Europe, but there's definitely some good baselines there, I think, to start from.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis, and thank you, Mr.